I'm Nancy Carlsson-Paige. I've worked in education all my life. I'm going into my fourth decade working in education, teaching teachers, and I've focused in, I'm Professor Emerita now, so I'm not teaching any longer, but still working very hard in education. I've written a number of books, the last one called Taking Back Childhood. And really, the focus of all my work has been in early childhood education and child development. And I'm very fascinated with understanding how children grow and learn in the early years. I love reading about that, observing them, and I'm particularly interested in how outside influences affect their growth and their learning and their healthy development. Influences like economic well-being and health, poverty, the influence of screens and technology, schools. What is it like for children in school, and how does that affect their development? What is it like to grow up in a commercial culture where you're bombarded with marketing messages all the time? All of these influences have really fascinated me in terms of how it shapes childhood in the United States at this time. So that said, over the last 25 or 30 years, I've been very concerned, as have many other educators, as we observe a diminishing of play in the early years of children's lives. Children, play is really the most important vehicle that children have for making sense of what they experience in life, for building ideas, and actually for learning, and for growing socially and emotionally, interacting with other children, and having the opportunity through using imagination and play to work out developmental needs and experiences, emotional needs. So, play is universal. It's like walking and talking. All children do it. Nobody has to teach them how to do it. It's a very profound activity. When something is that significant and universal in childhood, it causes us, I think, to step back and say with some respect, what is the function of this activity for children? And I think it really does provide an opportunity for kids to, it's a mechanism for healthy growth. So we've been observing over the last 25 or 30 years societal influences that are resulting in changes in children's play. One of the key influences is that children are playing less. They just spend less time at play. If you think about adults watching this, how you spent your time outside of school, probably running around outside and playing outdoors and in spontaneous play with other kids. But children today are spending a majority of their time in front of screens. We first started to see this happening when television was playing an increasing role in kids' lives over the last, say, 50 years. But more recently, with this cascading influence of screens in kids' lives on a daily basis and the pervasiveness of screens on computers and tablets and iPhones and all the apps and all the technology that's entered kids' lives on a regular basis, the amount of time that they're spending on screens is enormous, and it's replacing the active play experiences that children in the past have had. And then in addition to that, really because we live in a commercial culture where marketing anything to kids is acceptable, it's unrestricted, that really took a big leap forward during the Reagan era of deregulation, when it became acceptable to market all kinds of toys and products along with media. So we see that today, where there's a lot of cross-marketing. There'll be one theme. Take, say, Star Wars or whatever latest children's movie there is. There's fast food marketing, and there are a line of toys that goes along with it, and there are hundreds of products with the logo from the movie or whatever it happens to be at that particular moment in time. But what we began to realize, myself in studying children's play and others who were also studying it, was that children's play, as a result of this commercial influence and the marketing of especially toys that replicated the themes of play, the themes in the media, we began to see that children were playing out the scenarios that they saw in the media, encouraged by the toys that were tied directly to the media, and also the fact that the characters came with identities, came with scripts. We started to see that children were playing out, that their play looked more like imitation of what they had seen on the screen rather than the original play that's so beneficial for kids. It was eerie when I first noticed that children in different states that I visited around the country were all playing in the same way, playing the same themes, and playing out these kind of repetitive scenarios that they'd seen on a screen. And the benefits of play, which have to do with children's originality and imagination and unique invention, were disappearing. The real benefit of play is when children can invent their own story and write their own script. They're like writers and actors and directors all in one when play is working well. But no child's play looks like any other child's play if it's actually the kind of beneficial play that we know from all of our studies in child development is the kind of play that we're really knowing is of greatest benefit to children. So in this context then, where we were noticing diminishing of children's play time and kind of a undermining of the quality of children's play because of all the commercial and media influences and single-purpose toys marketed to them and so forth, it's in this context that we have seen in the last 15 years, unfortunately, a disappearance of play inside of school as well. Not only, of course, are the hours of recess cut way back for some kids completely in schools, but in this era of focus on testing and accountability and emphasis on standards, we've seen this increasing pressure in the early grades in elementary schools, kindergartens, and even preschools to get children up to speed to learn specific skills and sub-skills that are identified by standards. And this has led to much more teacher-led instruction and much less play in school. And there's a dramatic disappearance of play in kindergartens across the country. A report from Alliance for Childhood called Crisis in the Kindergarten shows this occurring, and we've observed it in many schools. So nationwide, and many people may have noticed, certainly parents see that kindergarten children are under a lot of pressure. They're doing homework. They're in teacher-led groups, in passive learning groups, instead of being able to play. Play is really at the root of learning. In play, when children work with materials, when they do imaginative play with each other, they're building ideas about the social world. They're building cognitive ideas in math and science. I could explain this further, but I don't think we have time. But ideas are built actively by children as they interact with materials through play and interact with each other. And that is a different kind of learning from the rote memorization that gets encouraged when teachers are leading groups of children and getting them to learn ideas by rote and skills by rote. It's not the deeper foundational building of knowledge that has to come from the active play-based learning that children need when they interact with blocks and art materials and construction materials and social experiences. So I think we have a crisis at this point with a diminishing of play, creativity, original thinking, and all of the aspects and capacities in early childhood that are linked to robust play. And I'm concerned that as we observe a diminishing of children's play, that it has implications for children's learning and healthy development for their future.